6. I apologize, the sign's a little messed up, but otherwise, we finished Chapter 3 last time, so we will be starting in Chapter 4. Chapter 4. Hey, how was school? His sister asked as Ned quickly rushed past her to his room, rummaging through the books on his shelf. One of them, he knew, had to contain what he needed. Ned? She called, coming in behind him. Not now, Christy, he snapped at her, causing her to reel in surprise at his outburst, before he caught himself and took a deep breath. Sorry, sis, I didn't mean to shout. School was somewhat hectic today. I don't really want to talk about it, okay? Christy frowned, sitting down on Ned's bed, watching as her brother hurriedly dug through his books. Ned, I'm worried about you. I know I haven't been home a lot lately with the restaurant, but I do care. Since Mom and Dad left. Mom and Dad didn't leave us, he interrupted, immediately stopping his search. They loved us. I know they'll come back someday, so please, don't talk like they're gone forever. The older prairie dog sat beside her younger brother as he buried his face in his paws. They've had this argument a lot. While his sister was less forgiving of his parents for their disappearance, Ned knew they'd never just abandoned them. Christy gently rubbed his back. You're right, Ned. Mom and Dad did love us, but it's been 10 years now. You need to know they're not coming back. She hugged him tightly, a gesture he normally would have rejected had it been anyone else. His discomfort with touching had one exception, and Christy was it. Right now, with everything that was happening, he needed to feel her arms around him. Inside his mind, however, Ned scolded himself on being so immature. He wasn't a child anymore. He was in high school now. But still, his big sister was there, hugging him like a baby. After a few moments, he pushed her away, wiping his nose with a sniffle. I'm not a little kid, Christy. I don't need you to treat me like this. His sister held up her hands in surrender, the sudden shift in his attitude assuring her he was okay now. You're right, Ned. I'm sorry. I'm going to cook us some dinner, okay? Come down when you're hungry. Take all the time you need. As she left, Ned turned his attention back towards the bookshelf. Finding his large paranormal encyclopedia, he pulled it from the shelf and sat on his bed, turning its pages until he found the page that read in big letters, ESP. At last he'd get some answers. ESP, he read aloud, or extrasensory perception, is the ability to gain information and observations with only the use of one's mind. Also known as a sixth sense, it comes in many forms, including astral projection, precognition, retrocognition, clairvoyance, telepathy, clairsentience, clairaudience, clairalience, claircognizance, clairgustance, and channeling. Ned quickly grabbed a blank composition notebook and wrote the words inside of it. He'd heard some of the words before, but the others he wanted to check up on later. If his hunch were correct, Laura would have some explaining to do. Just as he started to research more into ESP, a loud thud at his window caused him to jump. He was sick of all these starts. It probably wasn't good for his heart either, he decided. Going to the window, he unlocked the latch and lifted it open. Looking across to Ashley's house, he was shocked to see both her and Laura framed in her windowsill. Laura? He called. Did you ask Ashley to bring you here? He demanded angrily. Hi, Ned, Ashley called lazily from the window, waving in a way that was certainly not a friendly one. Hi, Ashley. How's the leg? He shot back, trying to not let her bother him. The cat shot Laura a glance that caused her blushing to deepen even further. It's fine. Just a minor sprain is all. Nurse says to keep off of it for a few days. I'm tough like a tank after all. And just as stubborn, Ned thought. Anyway, I'm just doing my friend Laura here a favor. She was very concerned about you after you ditched her at the library. Since she's the only friend you have, you should be nice to her. Ashley's last statement was pointed enough that Ned could practically feel it spear through him. You know, I don't really appreciate you shooting at my window with that slingshot of yours, he protested. You could have just knocked on the door. And stepped foot on your creepy place? Ashley grimaced. Not likely. I'm really sorry, Ned. I didn't mean to bother you. I didn't even know you lived here, honest. Laura interjected, stopping the neighbors' squabbling. I just wanted to apologize for upsetting you today. The rabbit's ears drooped as she lowered her gaze. I'm not upset, Ned assured her, before kicking himself. Why did that rabbit have to be so cute? It just made him melt when she looked at him so sad. I just realized something is all. I had to rush home to check on it. I've got some interesting information to share when we get back to school tomorrow. Really? That's wonderful, Ned. Thank you so much. Her cheerful excitement caused her ears to perk up once again as Ashley rolled her eyes. Seriously, though, you've been a big help, Ned. Are you sure I can't do something else for you? You're doing something? For him? Ashley asked skeptically. Why would you do something for that creep? Mind your own business, Ashley, Ned snapped. You're talking through my window, dummy. That makes it my business, she retorted. Ned could feel his frustration increasing with the cat. Just as he was about to protest, Laura chimed in. Actually, he let me join his club, Ashley, so really I'm getting two things out of the deal. Ashley was floored by her friend's announcement. Are you insane? That's social suicide. I mean, look at him, she pointed. Hey, still right here, he shouted back. Shush, Ashley ordered before taking Laura's paws in hers. Tell me the truth, Laura. Is he blackmailing you? Because if he's got dirt on you, just say so, and I'll do everything I can to free you from this prison he's locked you in. No, I'm fine. Honest, Ashley. He's been nothing but nice to me, I promise. Laura informed her, causing Ned to frown. He knew firsthand that wasn't necessarily true, though he was curious if she was just trying to defuse the situation or if she was truly that oblivious. But still, Ned, would you like to come over tomorrow for dinner at my house? Oh, come on, Laura, Ashley protested. I suppose I could. I'll have to ask my sister if that's okay, but I'm sure she'll be fine with it. I don't want to be too much trouble. Normally, Ned would have declined if not for the fact that he enjoyed watching Ashley squirm. The two of them had been rivals since elementary school. No trouble, Laura promised. I just wanted to thank you for all of your help. Ned couldn't help but feel that after he brought up what he'd discovered tomorrow, Laura might retract her invitation. He could wait, of course, to bring it up at her house. Perhaps that would be better anyway. So if she did laugh him out of the building, at least she wouldn't have time to spread it around the school. Ned, dinner! Christy's voice called from downstairs. Just a moment, he called back. I'll be there, Laura, I swear. The rabbit beamed at him. I'll let you eat, she said, moving away from the window. See you tomorrow, okay? See you then, Ned replied. As her window shut, he could see Ashley making faces at him in the window, and it took all of his willpower not to respond in kind. Instead, he simply slid the window closed and went downstairs. Chapter 5. As Ned sat down at the dinner table, his sister gave him a big grin. So, was this the Laura you were talking about in your sleep last night? Really, Christy? Eavesdropping? Ned asked, resting his cheek in his paw as he flipped another page of his book before sticking in a fork full of salad. Just trying to make conversation. She seems cute. Don't worry, it's just her naivety. She's cute in the same way that a toddler's cute. Mm-hmm, sure she is. I'm sure you dream about cute toddlers all the time. Shut up, it wasn't that sort of dream. She just happened to be in it. It didn't have any special meaning at all, he retorted. That was a lie, of course. He was still trying to piece together what it all meant. I don't know. I think there's something special about her, Christy teased. Without even thinking, Ned blurted, That's because she's an Esper. A what? Christy asked. Ned swore under his breath. His sister was highly skeptical about anything paranormal. He'd hoped she'd drop it, but when he realized she wouldn't move on until she got an answer, he sighed. An Esper, he repeated. She has ESP, or extrasensory perception. Christy's fork clattered to the plate as she frowned at her younger brother. Ned. Christy, I know what you're thinking, he began. Dang it, Ned, when will you grow up? She shouted. Ned was taken aback by the sudden change in tone. I'm trying to understand, Ned. Really, I am. I know that you're looking for some reason why our parents left. They didn't leave. Yes, they did, Christy argued, causing Ned to fall silent. Don't you get it? They just took off. There was no struggle. They didn't pack anything. They just walked out the door, and they aren't coming back. There is no reason why they left, Ned, other than that they plain just didn't care about either of us. All of your talk about psychics and ghosts is your way of coping. I understand that, but you need to wake up and join the real world, Ned. Ned glared at his sister in silence for a few seconds before closing his book and running up the stairs with it. Already, angry tears formed in his eyes as he slammed the door behind him before lying on his bed. He knew he was right about this. His parents would not have just abandoned them. He just wished Christy knew that, too. Ned buried his face in his pillow, burrowing into the covers to hide from the world. He knew that his parents didn't leave. They wouldn't have. He couldn't believe Christy would make such accusations. Glancing down at the book that lay beside him, Ned grabbed it and hurled it across the room where it fell with a clatter. The worst part about the argument he had with his sister was that he wasn't even sure she was wrong about his hobby. Maybe the Paranormal Investigation Club was just a way to cope, just like the way he isolated himself. After much time, the prairie dog cried himself to sleep, and Ned found himself once more trapped in a dream. This time, however, he stood outside of his own home. Hanging ominously in the sky was Judgment, this time her hand cranking furiously against the lever of the gramophone. "I'm sorry," he apologized. "I still can't hear it." This seemed to anger the frog even more. Her hand was a blur as Ned still strained as hard as he could to hear the faintest sound. He felt as if he would cry all over again. He would never even imagine what the music would sound like, but he knew in his heart that it would be breathtaking. He needed help, he knew, so he began to search for Laura somewhere in his dream. "Laura?" he called, walking along the street, attempting to ignore the glare beating down on his back from Judgment. "Are you here somewhere? I thought you might be able to give me more advice." High above him, small wisps of light rained down one after another, vanishing before they hit the ground. Each wisp contained a portion of a voice. "Ned?" the voice echoed, and he immediately recognized it as Laura. "Ned, can you hear me?" "Yes, but where are you?" he asked as more of the light fell. Was this also part of Laura's power? "I don't know," she admitted, "but I could hear you calling me from very far away." "I need to know. How can I hear her music?" he pleaded. "Judgment is still calling me, but I can't hear her at all." For a moment there were no lights, but then, like a fierce hailstorm, they came crashing to the earth. "I don't really know what you're talking about, Ned, but I'm sure the answer is right there. You just have to find it." He sighed softly, taking another longing look at the gramophone. "And Ned?" "Yes?" he asked, turning back to face the lights. This time, however, only one streak of light fell, pausing just before him. He was stunned. Never before had he seen something so beautiful. Compelled, he reached forward to touch the scintillating object. Popping like a bubble, it emitted only one word: "Hurry." He wasn't sure why he needed to hurry until he looked back up to the sky. Instead of the clear night that had sent Laura's messages to him, a sinister black mass replaced it. As it came closer, the inky darkness seemed to wilt everything over which it cast its shadow. Houses aged and cracked, streets chipped and fractured. It seemed as if the cold void drained the very life out of the town of Warren. Turning, Ned ran as fast as his legs could carry him towards the frog on the horizon. "Please, you have to help me," he begged, glancing over his shoulder to see the darkness racing after him in a beeline. Still she cranked, this time her visage twisting into a hideous creature. Her anger was apparent, and inside he felt like turning back. But he didn't care. He knew that he had to be brave. His hind paws created a rhythmic thud against the ground as his sprinting wore on his stamina. No matter how fast he ran, the darkness stayed the same distance behind him, until finally his body collapsed on the ground beneath him. Turning over, he saw the darkness racing towards him. Closing his eyes, he braced himself tightly, and with a painful blast, the shadows overtook him. He wrestled fiercely with them, thrashing wildly and shouting for help from Judgment. As his mouth opened, the darkness flooded in, drowning him in nothingness, until his eyes opened to reveal that the only thing he had been combating were his bedsheets. Once he'd calmed himself, he began to get ready for school. He slowly crept out of the room, tiptoeing to avoid his sister. He wasn't still angry, but he knew if they met, he'd have to talk about what was said last night. Right now, he had more important things on his mind, namely, the crazy dream he'd just had. Making it to the front door, he found his sister collapsed on the couch, the TV still on and playing her favorite cookie shows. Walking over to her, he carefully turned off the TV and placed a blanket over her before heading out the door. As it shut behind him, he looked up to the sky where the darkness had been. The day was clear, causing a wave of relief to wash over him. He wasn't sure why his dream disturbed him so greatly, but the fact that Laura was there to help him provided him with some comfort. "What are you looking at?" Laura asked as she approached him. He turned towards her, and for the first time in a long time, he smiled. Laura returned the gesture. Nothing, he replied. Let's go to class. I have a feeling that today is going to be a good day. The rabbit giggled. What makes you say that? Call it a hunch. She nodded in understanding before a realization occurred to her. Oh, you said you had some news you wanted to share with me. Ned thought back to the passages he read in the book about the strange dreams he had with Laura in them, about the silent gramophone and the omnipresent judgment. Laura, have you ever heard of ESP? ESP? I don't think so, she answered, her ears drooping. Sorry. It's all right. I was just curious. He stopped at the gates to the school and grinned at her. I'll give you the news tonight at your house, okay? For now, let's get to our classes. I can't wait to see you during lunch. Really? She asked. Last time you left in a big hurry. I was worried it was something about me. Sorry about that. I just had a lot on my mind, he explained. I promise this time you'll have my full attention. Consider it my thanks. Thanks for what? He simply grinned. For helping me. And with that, leaving a confused Laura scratching her head in an attempt to understand what he meant. Chapter 6. All morning, Ned wore that smile on his face. He wasn't entirely sure how it got there or how long it would be there until it left, but he didn't mind. One thing was for sure, the rest of the class noticed, and it wasn't something that made them comfortable. But it soon faded when he stepped out of the classroom, only to be greeted by a blinding flash. Ned Gunnison, Rocky Nelson with the Warren High Journals. I've heard a tasty secret that you and Laura Peters are working together on some sort of project. Blinking the light from his eyes, Ned laid eyes on the grinning raccoon. Was that flash really necessary? He growled, eyeing the camera with the obnoxiously large flashbulb. Since when did gossip writers take pictures for their column anyway? It's the talk of the school, Rocky explained. Creepy Ned and shy Laura. People can scarcely believe it. Ashley talked to you, huh? I refuse to reveal my sources, he replied smugly. It was definitely Ashley, then. But you never answered the question. Can you confirm that you and Laura are working on a project together? No comment, Ned groaned, pushing past him. He'd hoped that caused the raccoon to stop following him, but instead Rocky just fell into pace behind him. So, what sort of project are you working on? No comment. Ashley, my source, says that you're working on some kind of history project. No comment. Which is interesting because I talked to your history teacher and he didn't assign any sort of project that involves researching old alumni. Seriously, Rocky? Go away. It's no one's business what goes on between Laura and me. Oh! He exclaimed excitedly, clapping his hands together before pulling out a notepad. So you're saying that there is something going on between you and Laura? He immediately scribbled down on the paper before nudging Ned with his elbow. I must admit, she's pretty cute. How'd you manage that, you sly prairie dog, you? Look, Rocky, I'm about to force-feed you that pad if you don't leave me alone. Laura's a part of the club and we're working on a project. That's all you need to know, and that's all I'm going to tell you. Capiche? The raccoon held up his hands defensively and took a step back. It wasn't often that Ned attempted to intimidate someone, but this was a special occasion. He knew if Rocky sniffed out a story, he would hunt it into the ground. She's part of your club, you say? Drat, Ned mumbled under his breath before turning on his heels and walking the other way from Rocky. Noting that the raccoon was still following him, he growled in frustration. Why are you following me, Rocky? Hey, you don't own the hallway. I'm just going my way, which, coincidentally, is on a similar path to your way, he argued. Ned didn't believe that for a second. Sure enough, when the prairie dog took a turn towards the lunchroom, so did Rocky, and when he took a second turn towards the library, and a third, and a fourth. You are following me, Ned protested, turning to face the reporter, who had a sly smirk on his face. Like I said. No, the prairie dog interrupted. You just followed me, and I can prove it because I just intentionally walked in a circle to see if you were following me. The raccoon was stunned that he hadn't noticed. He'd been far too concerned with tailing Ned to realize. So stop it. Last warning. What's your problem, Ned? I'm just trying to do my job, you know. You don't have to be such a bully. I'm not being a bully. I don't want to be followed. Stop or else, he threatened. As unathletic as Ned was, he wasn't entirely sure that he could physically stop the raccoon that was a head taller than himself. Rocky noticed the same. Or else what? He sneered. Ned took a deep breath before plucking Rocky's notepad from his paws and running towards the nearest garbage bin. The raccoon was hot on his heels, but stopped as soon as he realized what his plan was. All right, Ned, don't trash it. I'll stop following you. Just give it back. You swear? Ned asked. I swear, Rocky agreed. Ned nodded, and holding out the pad towards the raccoon, turned and threw it as hard as he could down the hall at the last second, causing the reporter to glare at him. Real mature, Ned. Real mature. As soon as he walked past him, Ned rushed down the hall, ducking out of the way so Rocky couldn't follow him again. He knew better than to trust the reporter on his word alone. Taking a few more paths to ensure he truly lost him, he heard the lunch bell ring, signaling that the rest of the student body was eating. Then the loud bell just stopped abruptly in the middle of its ringing. The prairie dog felt an icy wind flow through the hall as his breath fogged up in front of him. "Oh no," he muttered under his breath as the overhead lights flickered. He slowly walked forward, his heart already pounding in his chest as he heard an eerie screech coming from behind. Turning to look over his shoulder, he could see the elephant apparition approaching him at a slow pace. The screeching sound he'd heard was the sound of the elephant's tusk dragging against the lockers, which opened one after another as he passed. "Bully," the elephant groaned, just loud enough that Ned could hear it. "Bully," he uttered again, this time louder than before. Ned walked backwards as the ghost's pace quickened. "Bully," it repeated, growing louder each time it said the word. "Bully, bully, bully." The last one was a loud trumpet that caused the lights overhead to shatter, sending sparks raining down on top of them. That was all the convincing Ned needed as he immediately bolted in the opposite direction of the ghost. His legs moved as fast as they could carry him, while he continued to hear the large creature stomping behind him, charging at him with all its might. The elephant caught up to him quickly, and it was then the prairie dog swore that he'd finally start exercising. "Why are you doing this?" he called over his shoulder at the apparition. "Laura said you were peaceful, that you helped her out when she needed you. Why are you doing this?" "Bully!" the ghost bellowed, now only a few yards behind him. Ned thought of all the books he'd read on the subject of ghosts. Pages flipped through his mind in a blur as he tried to recall any sort of information that could help him, if even a little. He could use salt to repel it, but he didn't just carry handfuls of salt in his pockets. Iron worked too, assuming he actually had some. Mirrors. Reflective surfaces were sometimes believed to repel evil spirits. While he didn't have a mirror on him necessarily, Ned grabbed his phone, holding up the screen towards the ghost before coming to a dead stop. As the elephant charged at him with all his might, Ned braced himself for impact. With a heavy thud, the ghost slammed against an invisible force field. It was working! Or so Ned thought until the ghost began pushing him and the force field back. The prairie dog steeled himself, slowing down the progress of the spirit as he shut his eyes tightly, shoving against it with all his might. In his mind, he could see the darkness as he did in his dream, and right now he kept it at bay as Judgment cranked her support behind him. Even with all his strength, however, the darkness shoved just as hard back against him, until he felt a gentle touch on his hand. "Don't worry, Ned. I'm here to help," he heard a monotone voice whisper in his mind. And with a grunt of effort, he suddenly felt the force pushing on him disappear, causing him to stumble forward. Opening his eyes, he looked down at the linoleum that had cracked beneath the phantom's massive force, the ending point of the chaos that had ensued down the hall. Breathing heavily, he slipped his phone back in his pocket and raced to find Laura in the library. As the door shut behind him, Laura looked up at him in surprise. "Ned, are you all right? What happened to you?" Coming to her, he sat down beside her, huffing and wheezing. He held up his finger, indicating he needed a moment before he spoke. "Your friend," he gasped, "decided to ambush me." "Oh my goodness, are you hurt?" she asked quickly, her eyes filled with concern, but Ned just shook his head, leaning back in the chair to rest. "Thank goodness you're all right. I wonder why he would attack you. You haven't done anything to me." "I have a vague idea," Ned muttered weakly. He kept repeating the word bully, which is what Rocky Nelson called me just before he attacked. "Rocky Nelson saw him too?" "No, he tried to follow me around so he could snoop on us, but I got rid of him." Another thought occurred to Ned. He read before that spirits could sense emotional energies and react from it. Because of that, had the ghost realized that he lied to Laura? Was his guilt what drew the ghost to him? If so, he only had one option. He had to come clean. "Laura, can I make a confession?" The rabbit frowned. Confessions were never good news. "Sure, Ned. Is something wrong?" He swallowed nervously, unsure of how to say what he needed to tell her. "Laura, I never really had any intention of keeping my promise to you," he surrendered, causing her to sink back, stunned. I'm sorry. I know he's your friend, but you have to see how dangerous he is now. He needs to be exorcised before things get even further out of hand. Why would you promise me if it was just a lie? Laura asked, the hurt she felt hanging on every word. I mean, I trusted you, Ned. I trusted you with my biggest secret, one I haven't even told my mother about, and yet you just blatantly lied to me? Now he felt even guiltier than he did before. Laura, where is he now? Laura demanded, tears welling up in her eyes. What? My friend, where is he now? Ned frowned, preparing himself for the storm. I banished him, he whispered. You what? She growled. You exorcised my friend after you promised not to, and you did it without even telling me first? How could you, Ned? Laura, I didn't exorcise him. I banished him. What's the difference, Ned? He's still gone. As the negative energy swirled around in the room, Ned noticed their breath fogging up again. The difference, Laura? He whispered softly, looking for a place they could take cover. As if he's banished, he can come back. Sure enough, the elephant materialized in the library. Bully, he hissed, sauntering over to him. Ned immediately went for his phone again, but Laura grabbed his wrist, stopping him. Ned, no. Let me talk to him. I can make him see reason. Please? Laura, Ned began, but she ignored him, turning back around and standing between the two of them, her arms outstretched as she stared deep into the ghost's hollow eyes. Stop, she pleaded, causing the elephant to pause. I know you're upset. I've made so many more friends now, and because of that we don't spend as much time together as we used to. The tears she'd held back for too long rolled down her cheek. But just because I make other friends doesn't mean that you're not my friend too. Laura, get out of there, Ned warned, looking around for some way to defend them. The elephant slowly made his way to Laura. See? That guy behind me is Ned. I know he probably hurt you when he banished you, but he only did that because he was scared. But you don't have to scare people anymore, she assured him. The elephant's eyes looked to Ned over Laura's shoulder, then back to the rabbit. The rabbit smiled through her tears as the elephant's trunk pulled back from her, and she sighed softly in relief. The ghost groaned before slamming his powerful snout into Laura's side, lifting her off the ground and tossing her like a rag doll into the bookshelf. Laura! Ned cried, rushing to her side. Laura, are you okay? It seemed like she was hurt pretty badly. As the elephant stomped towards them, he tossed aside tables and chairs between them, sending pencils, pens, and chalk scattering everywhere. Please stop, Laura begged him as she tried to stand, but the pain caused her to simply collapse back onto the ground. Thinking quickly, Ned grabbed a piece of chalk and immediately traced a circle around Laura and himself as the elephant came closer. Come on, Ned muttered, working quickly to finish it just as the ghost drew back to strike them again. What are you doing? Laura asked him weakly. I'm making a protection circle, Ned explained. Ghosts can't cross into the chalked line. As if to confirm what he said, the elephant's trunk slammed towards them, stopping just inches from Ned's cheek. This will keep us safe for a little bit, he assured her. The elephant furiously pounded on the invisible wall, letting out an angry trumpet as Laura pressed herself tightly against Ned in fear. Why won't he listen to me, Ned? She asked. Why was he my friend before, but not now? The prairie dog looked up at the large ghost, keeping himself absolutely still to avoid falling out of the circle. Like I said before, Laura, he's not the friend you knew anymore. When ghosts are in this world for too long, the negative energies they feed on get to their head. He's a poltergeist now. That's why we need to perform an exorcism. But I don't want you to kill him, Laura sniffled. The pieces fell into place as Ned glanced down at the timber rabbit. Laura, an exorcism doesn't kill him. He's already dead. You can't treat him like a living person anymore. He needs to pass on. All those negative energies that make him crazy are removed, and he moves on to whatever awaits us after death. She looked up at him, rubbing her eyes with the back of her paw. Really? She asked. Really, he assured her. I know you don't want him to disappear, Laura, but look at him. The elephant stomped his foot again, letting out another angry trumpet. He's not well. Whatever was left of your friend is trapped in that rage, and this is the only way we'll be able to free him. Laura's hand reached down and rested on Ned's. All right, she finally surrendered. Let's exorcise him. How do we do it? We have to find what's tying him to the world. Sometimes it can be unfinished business, or perhaps his remains weren't properly buried. He explained, flinching as the elephant's huge weight crashed against the ethereal barrier. What do we do to make him leave now? I'm not sure, Ned admitted. Normally, we'd have to use some salt or something to get rid of him, but with this chalk circle, we can't go anywhere. Just then, the bell rang to signal the end of lunch. As the alarm echoed in the library, the elephant roared, shielding his ears. The two investigators watched as he simply vanished from sight, leaving them both sitting in the carnage of the library. Or we just wait for lunch to end? He commented, confused. Laura took a nervous breath, waiting to see if the ghost would come back. When he didn't, she finally realized that she and Ned were touching. Sorry, Ned. I know you don't like physical contact. He blinked, not even having realized it until she mentioned it. It's all right. I don't mind that much, he whispered shyly. She smiled warmly at him until another wave of pain ran through her side, causing her to wince. You're hurt pretty badly. Come on, let's get you to the nurse. He helped her to her feet, but after a few steps she nearly collapsed again. I can't walk. I think he may have cracked something, she whimpered. Ned sighed. He knew what he had to do, and he wasn't looking forward to it. Turning away from her, he crouched down. Wrap your arms around my neck. I'll carry you on my back to the nurse's office. Laura's cheeks burned a bright red. But we'll be touching, and what if someone sees? I don't really care. Right now, you could be seriously injured. There are more important things at stake than my comfort or popularity, which, let's face it, I don't care about anyway, he retorted. The rabbit nodded, clinging to him as he lifted her up. Besides, it'd be best if we weren't here when the librarian gets back from her break, he joked, causing Laura to giggle. Alright everyone, that's the end of Chapter 6. Thank you so much for joining me for this reading. If you would like to read the book on your own, you can find copies of it available on Amazon. The book is War and High, An Elephant Never Forgets by J.C. Roberts. You can find it digitally, you can find it in print. Whatever the case, please leave a review. I would really appreciate it. They're worth their weight in gold on Amazon. Thank you very much. Feel free to comment, subscribe, and I'll be doing more readings of War and High. As well as once I've finished the first book, I'll do a reading for the second book as well. So, let me know what you guys think. I'm always looking for feedback. Thank you so very much for your help, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your week. Thank you very much.